I am not a historian, but neither are you. So, how about we, the people, learn this stuff together? Welcome to US 101. And my first year of grad school has come to a close, which means I'm going to be seeing a lot more of you guys over the next few weeks. So this week, guys, I am making my way down to New Orleans for the very first time for my bachelor party. That's right, your boy is getting married and I am accepting gifts. So when it was time for me to pick a place that I wanted to celebrate my last few days before my nuptials, NOLA was the perfect fit, man. I mean, you've got amazing food, amazing drinks, jazz music everywhere, and the city is replete with history. Yes, the history of a city is something that I did very much take into consideration when picking the destination for my bachelor party, because I am a nerd. And I'm fiercely proud of it. What I want to talk with you guys about on today's episode has to do very much with New Orleans history. I want to talk to you guys about a battle that took place in New Orleans. Specifically, a battle that happened after the war had finished. Doesn't make sense, right? Why would you fight a battle if the war was over? Did the soldiers not get the memo that the war was finished? Actually, that's exactly what happened. Let's go ahead and discuss. So the war I'm referring to, guys, is the War of 1812, a war which was fought between Britain and a newly independent United States of America. And the War of 1812 is one of those wars that a lot of people don't really know what the War of 1812 was about, why it happened. Some people don't even know that war took place, unless you tell them that, it was the one that happened in 1812. Obviously. Now, this episode isn't going to focus on the entirety of the War of 1812. That is for later episodes, but as always, context is key. Want to put you guys in the right frame of mind before we dive into our main focus of the story. So the War of 1812 happened because of a few things, okay? First, there was an issue regarding trade. Now, at the time, in the early 19th century, Britain and France were fighting each other. France at the time was being run by Emperor Napoleon. Thus, these wars that Napoleon was having were called the Napoleonic Wars because we like creative names in history. So Britain and France are fighting each other. And at the time, in 1807, Britain passes what's known as the Orders of Council, which basically says to all neutral countries that are not involved in the Napoleonic Wars, you cannot engage in trade with us or anybody else for that matter that's involved in these wars unless you get our permission first. So basically, if the United States, a neutral country not fighting in the Napoleonic Wars, wanted to trade with France or any of its colonies or anybody, or even Britain for that matter, they had to dock in Britain first, seek Britain's permission, and then they could go ahead and trade with everybody. On top of that, the British Navy was capturing American sailors that were on American ships that were sailing in European waters and then forcing those American sailors to join the Royal Navy. That, by the way, is called impressment, is when you force someone into joining the military. And it's quite rude. So the American government responds with President Thomas Jefferson signing something called the Embargo Act of 1807, which basically said, okay, that the United States is not trading with anyone anymore. Nope, we're not doing business. America is closed for business. Thank you very much. And that probably wasn't the best idea, because if you can't trade with people, you're not getting goods, you're not making money by exporting goods. Not the smartest idea. So in 1809, the Embargo Act is repealed and it's replaced with the Non-Intercourse Act, which expressly forbids the United States from having sex with Britain or France. I mean, trading with either Britain or France. They have got to work on that wording, because people will get the wrong idea. But then in 1810, Napoleon says, okay, USA, I might consider working with you guys, might consider trading with you guys again. So now, by 1810, we have President James Madison in office. He says, okay, sounds good. The United States decides to start trading with France again and stops trading entirely with Great Britain. And at the same time, some members of Congress like Henry Clay and John C. Calhoun, they're leading a faction of people in Congress that are known as war hawks. These are people that want to seek war against Great Britain because of their foul maritime acts. They stopped us from trading with them. and they captured our American soldiers. And on top of that, they heard a little rumor that the British were telling Native Americans, hey, you should attack Americans that are trying to head westward expansion. Yeah, don't let them do that. You should stop them and kill them. And so people in Congress were very upset at the British for all of these things. So in June of 1812, President Madison signs a declaration of war against Britain. This is the very first declaration of war that the United States would make in its history. And it doesn't really start off so well, because the first thing the United States tries to do is invade Canada, which is a British colony. They're trying to maybe make their way up to Montreal through Michigan, and then the British stop them and say, what are you even trying to do? This is not... Get out! And so the British chase the Americans back into Michigan, and the British end up taking Detroit as a result. But as the war goes on, the United States starts to have some success against the British, because you have to remember, the British is not at full strength in the United States, because they are still mostly in Europe fighting in the Napoleonic Wars. But by 1814, when the Napoleonic Wars come to an end, Britain goes, okay, well, that fight's done. What should we do now? Oh, yeah, those Americans... They don't know what to quit, man. Okay, guys, come on. We're going to go to the United States. Let's do it. So the British turns all of its attention now to the United States. They take their entire Royal Navy fleet and sail it west across the Atlantic towards the shores of America. America, we are coming for that ass. And when Britain shows up, oh, they let America know. Because one of the major events of the War of 1812 is when the British Royal Navy sails up the Potomac River, captures Washington, D.C., and burns down the Capitol building and the White House. And then a month later, in September of 1814, a battle occurs at Fort McHenry near Baltimore, and it is at that battle that the British hit American forces with basically an all-day shelling attack. It's about a 24, 25-hour onslaught of just British offense after British offense after British offense. Offense or offense? Offense or offense? You pick your pronunciation. But the American forces withstand the British attack and manage to hold the British off. And it is at this battle that a young man by the name of Francis Scott Key will see the American flag flying atop of Fort McHenry and is inspired to write what would later become our national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner. Now, following this battle, peace negotiations between Britain and America begin in a place in Europe called Ghent, which we now know today as Belgium. But while this peace negotiation is happening, at the same time, the Royal Navy is sailing now to the southern part of the United States towards New Orleans and the mouth of the Mississippi River. Why are they doing that? Because they figure if they can control the mouth of the Mississippi River, the mouth of the South, if you will, they are controlling a major port of entry to the American South. And remember, the United States had just acquired a whole swath of land via the Louisiana Purchase from Napoleon. So if they can control this entryway to the South, they're controlling a major port of entry and a major port of trade. So as 50 ships from the Royal Navy make their way to the mouth of the Mississippi River to take over this massive port of entry and port of trade, news of this invasion makes its way to Florida and to the ear of a future American president who hears about this invasion and says, not on my watch. I'm too tough and I'm too strong for this to happen. We're gonna go to New Orleans. We're gonna go to Louisiana and stop it. So this man gets a bunch of just like, it's like a ragtag force, man. He gets soldiers, he gets slaves, Native Americans, free people of color, anybody he can get his hands on basically, and says, right, we're going to go to Louisiana and we are going to stop this. And that future president and that man that would try to stop the British invasion, Andrew Jackson. Ajax. Makes it into another US 101 episode. It's been a while. So when Major General Andrew Jackson makes his way to New Orleans, what's the first thing that he does? Do you think he goes and gets a po' boy? Maybe a beignet? Maybe has himself a Sazerac and just sits back and just sips lightly and goes, oh, what a lovely time. No, he does none of that. He instead marches into the city and declares martial law. Puts the city on lockdown and then basically says, I need every weapon and I need every available man to help me fight the British. And by the time he puts his force together, he's got about 4,500 men compared to the British forces, which have about 8,000 soldiers. Now, there will be a few dust-ups between Jackson's forces and the British forces in the month of December. But by December 24, 1814, the Treaty of Ghent is signed in Belgium by both British and American diplomats, basically saying that the War of 1812 is over. Now, the treaty won't officially be ratified until 1815, February of 1815, so technically they're there's still a war going on. But on paper, peace has been negotiated. Everybody's cool. Everybody's happy. No more war. But see, here's the problem. Today, if there's a war that goes on and then peace is reached, everybody will know about it within a matter of seconds, really, because that news will be blasted out onto the internet, onto all social media platforms. We'll all know about it. But back then, early 19th century, 1814, there is no internet, there's no Twitter, there's no Gram, there's no Snapchat, there are no telephones, there are no airplanes, there are no high-speed boats. The only way you're getting information from Europe to the United States is by boat. And that boat trip across the Atlantic, depending on the weather, you don't know how long that trip is going to take. Could take 6 weeks, could take 3 months, you don't know. So yeah, while the diplomats in Belgium are all shaking hands going, jolly good old friend, we've ended a war peacefully, well done. In the United States, they're like, war is on. We have no idea that the war is over, so it's about to get rough. So in New Orleans, on January 8, 1815, 15 days after the Treaty of Ghent is signed, Jackson's forces and the British forces are gonna go head to head. Now the British, who are led by Lieutenant General Sir Edward Pakenham, start off the day with an assault on Jackson's forces. Here's Pakenham's plan. His goal was to attack Jackson's forces from the front and from the side, so that what they would do is they would kind of fold in on Jackson's forces and they would pin them in the middle of crossfire and soundly defeat them. However, this attack did not work because at the beginning of the battle, when the Redcoats start making their way toward the American forces, Jackson's forces start hitting them with a ton of artillery, some of which is manned by pirates. These pirates, by the way, were led by the pirate Jean Lafitte, who double-crossed the British. And actually, Jean Lafitte, that's another story I want to get into another time. I'm not going to get into it now, but just know that there were pirates fighting on the side of the United States. And as the battle wore on, the British were getting mowed down by Jackson's forces on all sides. And by the end of the battle, 2,000 British soldiers are dead, while Jackson's forces, less than 100 men die. Why did the British have so much trouble? Jackson and his men, let me restate that. Jackson had his men, mostly slaves, build what's called a rampart along the Rodriguez Canal. Now, what is a rampart? A rampart is basically a defensive wall that you build to fortify where you are stationed at. So in this case, Jackson's forces, they build a 1,500-yard rampart along the Rodriguez Canal, and they just dig in behind this wall. And because, again, 1,500 yards, that's 15 football fields long. That is a long distance. So the Americans could basically cover a lot of ground and shoot at the British forces from seemingly everywhere. And by the end of the battle, the British are basically all but decimated, and Jackson becomes a national hero, even though, again, this is a battle that was won after the War of 1812 was technically over. But hey, us Americans, we sure do love winning. So yeah, go get him, Ajax. Way to win that battle, man. And not to mention that the Battle of New Orleans was such a big victory for Jackson that battle helped him in his ascent to the presidency. However, some of his tactics that he employed in New Orleans, like declaring martial law and censoring newspapers and wrongfully imprisoning pretty much anybody he wanted, those were used against Jackson while he was trying to become president. People were saying, like, don't make him president, because if you do that, you've seen he can be kind of a tyrant. Don't elect this man. But no, that's not like Andrew Jackson at all. No, it's not like this man, when he became president, would go ahead and make people do things that they wouldn't want to do. Right? And that is it for this episode of US 101, guys. Thank you so much for watching. It is so good to be back with you guys, man. My first year of graduate school has come to a close. Got straight A's, by the way, in case you were wondering. Thank you for asking, even if you didn't. But yeah, so that means I've got the whole summer to make US 101 episodes, so expect to see me again on a weekly basis. I have missed you guys. I miss doing these episodes, man. I gotta get back into the swing of things. I felt a little rusty during this episode, but it's okay. Shaking it off. We're gonna get better. But thank you guys so much for watching, for liking the videos, for sharing them, for subscribing them. We recently surpassed 7,000 subscribers. What? That's awesome. Thank you guys for hanging out. And as always, you can follow US 101 on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All those links down below in the description box if you guys want to know what's going on in between episodes. Guys, I'm going to go to New Orleans now, but I will see you next week for a brand new episode of US 101. So until then, I am all done. I'm going to go pack, and I'm going to go prepare my liver for all the bachelor party antics that are about to happen inside of my body. via alcohol. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Go marching in.